He just couldn't wait when crossing the street and squeezed into the front row of the crowd, but he didn't expect it to become the beginning of a series of strange misfortunes. Watching the woman fall to the ground in an instant, the kind-hearted man ignored his thoughts and immediately entered the crowd of onlookers. He quickly took off his coat and placed it on the back of his head, hoping to exchange it for a glimmer of vitality for him. Fortunately, at this moment, an ambulance happened to pass by the roadside. Upon seeing the situation, the emergency personnel immediately rushed over upon hearing the news. After a brief hemostasis treatment, they hurriedly carried the woman onto the car. As a witness to the incident, the man also prepared to go to the hospital together at the request of the emergency personnel. However, he did not expect that despite all kinds of rescue measures, due to the woman's severe injury, the doctor was ultimately powerless, and the woman quickly lost her breath completely. Seeing this, the man can only helplessly silently regret in his heart, but he never thinks that the matter is far from over at this point. In the blink of an eye, it was evening, and the man was still feeling palpitations due to daytime events. Suddenly, a hospital call rang from his phone.
Алло, 15:10:30 поступил.
Upon hearing the doctor's strange statement, the man felt somewhat incredulous, but did not accept that more strange things would soon follow. Wait until the man wakes up the next day, about to finish breakfast, and then go to the hospital to check. But at this moment, he was suddenly shocked to find that a strange liquid of bright red color suddenly gushed out from the seemingly ordinary eggs in the oil pot. At first, the man didn't think much, thinking it was just a broken egg and there was no need to scare himself. He pretended to be calm and poured it into the trash can, then hurriedly went out. However, I didn't expect the strange things to be more than that. Just as the man hurriedly walked out of the subway to the hospital, a high-speed flying pigeon suddenly hit his face without bias. Looking at the struggling birds on the ground, the man didn't understand why things had become so coincidental, but deep down he seemed to sense a hint of ominous premonition. After arriving at the hospital, the doctor told him that the woman's life was no longer in danger, but she lost her memory due to a head impact and couldn't remember her family. And just as the man walked into the ward with a nervous heart, the woman who was supposed to be seriously injured and unconscious seemed to have been waiting for him for a long time, lying there unscathed.
Честные цветы.
Вы что-то видели, да?
Это страшно. С ними все хорошо, вы не переживайте.
Upon hearing the woman's statement, the man felt that he must have had his head smashed, so he quickly comforted him and asked him to recover well. However, at this moment, the woman suddenly asked the man without warning what his wishes were and said he would definitely help him achieve them. And seeing that the woman is likely to have a neurological problem, the man can only joke that he really wants to change the bad situation, and then quickly evades it perfunctorily. After speaking, let the woman rest well, and then go to 58.com to find a janitor to help him clean up. However, at this moment, he had no idea that such an ordinary joke would really bring an unexpected turning point to his life. When the man returned to the unit in a daze, he quickly realized that everything he was familiar with seemed to be undergoing some strange change. Those colleagues who have been ignoring them all year round suddenly started to show off their coldness and warmth to him, contrary to their usual behavior. And the boss, who has always regarded himself as a transparent person, unexpectedly handed over the most important project of the company to men to do. Not only that, but even the ex-wife who once kicked herself out of the house suddenly changed her previous fierceness, and after carefully dressing up, she begged herself to reconcile with him. Looking at the dignified and virtuous ex in front of him, and thinking about his once extremely disdainful face, the man only felt that all of this was too strange. So without much thought, he quickly got up and ran to the hospital, hoping to thoroughly understand the truth of the matter. Unexpectedly, just as the man was questioning how he had brought himself such good luck, the woman calmly told him that he deserved it all. This makes men who were originally living a very oppressive life instantly filled with infinite expectations for the future. And as expected, the situation did not disappoint him. When he returned to the unit, he suddenly found that someone else was already sitting in his inconspicuous seat, and instead, the boss made an exception and promoted him to project manager. Not only was he equipped with a full-time beauty assistant, but he also specially arranged a very imposing large office for him. For the first time in his life, he sat in the position of a leader. While the man was happy, there was even a hint of rare panic in his heart. However, as he looked at his subordinates who were obedient to him in front of him, he deeply realized the beauty of having a high social status. So, as soon as he finished work, the man ran to the hospital with great excitement. He felt that the appearance of a woman must have brought him such good luck, so he carefully prepared a cake representing his heart, hoping that the woman could accept his gratitude. Unexpectedly, the robust woman suddenly blew out the candle with a cold expression, complaining that men should not waste their beautiful time on these things. Although it felt a bit strange, the man who had been immersed in spring pride did not think much about it. He excitedly showcased his latest design mansion to the woman, and while feeling proud, he excitedly said that whoever can live here in the future will definitely be the happiest person in the world. And as the man finally felt the beauty of life again, the woman also showed a strange yet meaningful smile on the side. From then on, the man seemed to have changed his personality, exuding a confident aura everywhere in work and life. His career also continued to thrive, but strange things began to happen unconsciously. Just as the man confidently reported the progress of the project to the boss, he suddenly felt a wave of dizziness. He touched his head with his hand and inexplicably shed a lot of blood on camera. But just as he anxiously ran into the bathroom to flush, he was shocked to find that the wound on his head had just disappeared inexplicably. Seeing such a strange scene, the man felt that he might have been overly nervous. However, it wasn't until he noticed the strange public opinion on his back that he suddenly realized that things might not be so simple. So the man hurriedly ran to the hospital for examination with anxiety, but unexpectedly, although he could always feel an inexplicable hidden pain in his body, the results of the examination surprisingly showed that his body had no problems at all, and even the doctor was very clear that it was the patient caused by excessive work pressure. So in order to relieve his anxious mood, the man came to the bar excitedly, intending to relieve his worries by getting drunk and relax well. But I didn't expect that just as I lifted the bottle to feel pain, the next second I woke up strangely on a big bed. Axon heard the strange and familiar voice of the woman, and the man was instantly frightened and panicked. At this moment, he was actually lying in the mansion he had designed himself. And the woman who was still lying in the hospital bed yesterday suddenly became her girlfriend for no apparent reason. Mr. Bug.
Какой доктор?
Беспокоили.
Upon hearing the woman's words, the man was instantly shocked and widened his eyes. He couldn't believe everything in front of him was true, so he pretended to want coffee and pushed the woman out. He quickly got out of bed to check the situation. Although it may seem unbelievable, all of this is truly presented in front of me. Looking at the woman busy with herself in the kitchen, the man suddenly realized that this was the ideal life he had been dreaming of. Living like this doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with it, so I greedily accepted everything I got for nothing in front of me, and my entire mindset quietly changed unconsciously. When he arrives at the workplace again, his ex-wife has been waiting here for a long time. He said he has been unemployed recently and has encountered financial difficulties, so he hopes that men can help him. He also said that he should not have despised men for lacking skills in the past. Every word reveals deep memories, and he hopes to be forgiven by men. But little did they know that although he still had love for his ex-wife in his heart, he was no longer the humble man he used to be. Before his ex-wife could finish speaking, he sarcastically mocked him in front of his assistant, disregarding his face. He was just a woman who could navigate the wind. And seeing her shameless self, the former humiliations and grievances instantly dissipated, and the man's vanity was greatly satisfied. Unexpectedly, the good times didn't last long. Just as the man refused his ex-wife and was about to report his work to the boss, something strange suddenly happened again. He found that his carefully prepared project plan had turned into empty blank sheets of paper, and the next second, thick blood suddenly surged out of my head again without warning.
Не трогай меня.
Although I don't know why it's like this, men know that all the eerie experiences must be related to the woman in front of them. So he quickly got down to bed anxiously, only to be shocked to find that his body had become increasingly weak, realizing that something bad might happen. The man put on his clothes with all his strength and hurriedly rushed out of this eerie house, only to receive a call from the boss at this moment. Helpless, the man had to anxiously return to the company. However, to his surprise, the office he was extremely familiar with was already filled with extremely unfamiliar faces. Seeing this scene, the man was at a loss for an instant, feeling dizzy, and even sat down all over.
Максим, где ты был?
Watching himself sit in front of his girlfriend at this moment, the man's mind has completely fallen into chaos, and in order to conceal his inner unease, the man quickly pretended to be calm and thought back. It must have been when his ex-wife abandoned him that he caused profound psychological trauma, which led to a serious confusion in his consciousness. After speaking, he continued to chatter to himself, saying that it was his ex-wife who had harmed him, otherwise he would not have fallen into this kind of situation.
Ты хочешь ее наказать, Максим?
Ой, какая сука, всё.
Watching the man and woman with abnormal behavior in front of them silently shed strange tears, but at this moment, the man's consciousness began to become even more chaotic, constantly jumping back and forth between various scenes.
Где 5-й дом?
А здесь нет пятого.
Как так? Бульвар, правильно?
Это Литовский бульвар.
Ну, навигация-то показывает 5-й дом.
By the time he woke up from his dream again, the man had once again been lying on the bed at home. However, what is even more eerie is that at this moment, the assistant of the unit turned into his girlfriend, and he also transformed into the owner of the company. But before the man could react from his chaotic thoughts, the sad news of his ex-wife's death in a car accident suddenly came from his phone. Although he had deeply hurt himself before, the pain in his heart also reminded him that he still had love for his ex-wife. Recalling the bits and pieces of the past, the man suddenly remembered the strange woman who had mentioned punishment, so he concluded that it must be related to him. So he didn't have time to think much, nor did he care about the car that was damaged at an unknown time. The man quickly angrily returned to the villa he had designed, but he didn't realize that the room was already in a mess, and the woman seemed like a frightened bird, constantly avoiding the man who came to question him. Before she could finish speaking, the woman was heavily thrown to the ground. However, the next second, he suddenly stood up again in an extremely eerie posture. Upon seeing this, the man instinctively picked up the furniture next to him and smashed it hard at the woman with a strange face in front of him. Unexpectedly, at the moment of contact, the environment I was in suddenly changed again. The confused man was completely tormented and lost in consciousness, unable to distinguish between illusion and reality.
Когда так спрячешься, что не найдешь. Я его сейчас найду.
With a loud bang, the man was sent into a pitch-black elevator this time. Seeing this, he instinctively adjusted his breathing because from the familiar environment in front of him, he could already tell that he had returned to the time before everything had happened. Slowly opening the familiar door, his former wife was indeed waiting there. However, this time, his face no longer had the ferocity of hating him, but instead walked towards the man with tears in his eyes, seemingly filled with some regret. Another thing is that the reluctance to part is only revealed when parting ways, and the man at this time does not know what this really means. He just keeps promising to work hard and ensure that he will live a worry-free life with his clothes and food. But I completely didn't notice that the scenes in the past calendars were gradually blurring with the blurred memories, and they were constantly disconnected bit by bit. Address due to 3 stated OK. With the lonely back of the emergency doctor turning around, the man's life finally came to a complete end. It turns out that from the beginning, the unfortunate discrimination caused by a car accident was the man in front of him. After suffering a serious impact, the man has been on the brink of his life. Looking at the doctor in front of him who was urgently rescuing him, as well as the bewildered face of the audience, the man's faint subconscious even imagined a perfect world for himself on his deathbed. There, he was finally no longer the helpless and extremely humble middle-aged man. There, he gained the appreciation of his superiors, gained the favor of his colleagues, and finally waited for a change of heart in his deep love for his ex-wife. All of these were regrets and long-standing wishes that he had never realized in reality, but had always been deeply buried in his heart. Whether it's a bird injured by a bloody egg, a car inexplicably damaged, or a constantly aching back, they all reflect his true feelings as he passes away. The experience of a man is undoubtedly unfortunate, but it is also fortunate that he filled the last regret in the world with his own thoughts in the final moment of life and death. I think this can also be considered as a stubborn self-redemption and the last bit of nostalgia for the beautiful world. This is not a group of ducks here.